Welcome back, folks. This is Shane. In today's video, we're going to talk about the best digital modeling amplifiers of all time from the ones that I've actually tested. A lot of people put together website blogs or they talk about stuff they've never tested in videos. I'm not going to do that. So this will all come from experience, and I'll link down to all the video reviews of these amplifiers down in the description so you can actually check out that entire playlist if you so choose. Now, there's a lot of flies going around today, so hopefully none of them land in my mouth as I'm talking. So we're going to get into this, and I hope you enjoy this video. If you can, leave a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. I'm going to start filming a lot more outside in 2025. I know we're not there yet, but this will be the first of a new style of video that I want to do, because you know what? I've been sitting in that bloody studio for years. It's time for a change, so let's get into it. I should also point out, I'm going to break down each of these amplifiers into four main sections. So we're going to talk about price, usability, tone, and longevity. Longevity is a thing that a lot of people don't consider. So we're going to talk about that in this video as well. All right, let's talk about my favorite digital modeling amp combo of all time as it pertains to being loud enough to gig with, and an amp that I gigged with many times. Many of my friends bought this amplifier. It's definitely one of my favorites, if not my favorite, on this list in terms of it being a combo. And this is an older amplifier, but I still think it sounds way better than anything Fender are putting out currently in the same range. So this is, of course, the Fender Mustang III version 2. The Fender Mustang III version 2 was an absolute shock to me. I couldn't believe Fender produced an amplifier that could essentially copy the tones of their tube amps. And I did so many A/B comparisons with Dr. Rick, with my friend Brian, and in the room we couldn't hear a difference between them. And all we had to do was use our ears to dial in the tones. And in terms of price at the time, these were exceptional value. They weren't the cheapest digital modeling amp, on the planet or anything like that, but I still think they were arguably one of the best ever made. And I could absolutely use one in 2024 going into 2025 and still get really great tones. One of the big advantages that the Fender Mustang III version 2 had was the little LCD screen, and this allowed you to essentially dial in the tone that you had in your head either via the amp or via the software if you had it connected to the computer. Now, it didn't have Bluetooth connectivity or anything like that, but you were able to dial it in without the need of a computer, which gave it a huge advantage over a lot of other digital modeling amplifiers, and still to this day. And while it didn't have phone connectivity and all that kind of stuff, I didn't really feel like that was a thing I wanted on an amp. I felt like if I ever had my phone in my hand, I was going to get distracted from playing. Maybe that's just me. Another big reason these amplifiers are so good is their longevity. They're still going strong even in 2024, going into 2025. A few of my friends still have them, and they purchased them back when I had mine many years ago. I kind of wish I had kept it in hindsight, but yeah, these are awesome amplifiers. And what I'll do, I'll leave my final review here on screen that will cover all of those four factors we spoke about earlier. So yeah, these are a great sounding amplifier. They're built well, got a quality 12-inch speaker, and it's a shame, unfortunately, Fender aren't making their new amps as good as their old ones. I'm starting to sound old. Any list of digital modeling amplifiers wouldn't be complete without this next one. And while I have a bit of a mixed emotion about this amplifier, it still has to go on the list. It's an absolute no-brainer. And this is, of course, the Boss Katana. That's right, the Boss Katana range of amplifiers. And in particular, the 100 with the single 12-inch speaker. I think that's kind of like the sweet spot. Now, the 50 is a great little amp as well. And if that's all you need in terms of volume, it's fine. But the benefit of the 100 is we get the power attenuation on there, which allows us to essentially drop the volume back to 50 watts. And of course, you can drop it all the way down and practice at home without annoying the neighbors. And one of the things I really love about the Boss Katana amplifiers is their speaker. So in terms of tone, they get the big thumbs up. Now, I don't necessarily think they sound better than the Fender Mustang III version 2, but they're easily as good. I know a lot of people really love the solid state clean channel that you get with the Boss Katana. It's still a digital modeling clean channel, but it's essentially a solid state clean, and then you can start piling on the effects. So in terms of tone, they give you plenty of different stop boxes, they give you delays, all that kind of stuff. I think where at least for me, the Boss Katana isn't as functional is because you need the software to basically unlock the extended functionality. Now, I'm a bit old school with my amps. Having a screen on my amp isn't something I want in 2024 these days, because I just want to have it as simple of an experience as I can. But the Boss Katana doesn't make it as simple as it could be. So I'd like to see that software kind of refined in the future. I still don't think it's as streamlined as it could be, but it's still very good. So it kind of gets like a B for its software. But the fact you can't sort of adjust all the parameters just by using the amplifier, yeah, it's not ideal for a lot of players, but you know, it's a small trade-off for what I consider to be maybe the best value amplifier on this list currently, because, you know, for 500 bucks, at least here, you know, that'll vary in different locations. You're getting an amp that's loud enough to jam with, loud enough to gig with. It's great for recording. You've got that USB output on the back, and that direct recording sounds really good because I've used it and I actually really like it. It's one of those kind of, you know, easy and fairly inexpensive solutions to get you recording at home without needing mics and all that kind of stuff, and the knowledge that goes into learning how to record and all that kind of stuff. So it really does simplify the entire process. Maybe my only complaint with the Boss Katana stuff is it's starting to feel a bit like a cash grab, because other amplifiers are shipping with Bluetooth connectivity. You've got to buy a dongle to get Bluetooth connectivity. Like, that's not good. And I also don't like the fact that there's a new amp coming out almost every year like it's some sort of iPhone. I get it, they're kind of milking it, but I don't really appreciate that. I would have liked to have seen more firmware updates for the existing users to get some of those tones that might be released in the new version of the amp, because at the end of the day, it's a digital modeling amplifier. There's no reason why on a technical level they couldn't do that, even if it meant maybe replacing another one of the amp sounds you already had. So yeah, I don't know if they've done that yet, but at the time I reviewed it, it wasn't an option for the prior versions. And it's a hard amp to recommend someone buy if they've already got one of the other ones. Again, it feels a bit like a cash grab, but overall these amps are super popular, and I've used them live, I've used them in the studio, and they're great value, and they're lightweight as well. Quality speakers, good tones, just maybe not the best user experience. Overall, the Boss Katana gets this rating right here on screen, but let us know what you think of this amplifier. None of these are perfect. I'm picking out the pros and cons through experience, so don't take it personally, don't get butthurt, but I'm sure someone will. All right, up next we're going to talk about NUX. Now, they make a range of exceptional small practice amplifiers, but they've just hit the market with the NUX Mighty 60 Mark II, which is arguably one of the most usable and best sounding affordable combo amps you can use. So if you're a fan of the Boss Katana, or if you're a fan of the Fender Mustang III version 2 and you're looking for something a little bit different, might not quite sound the same as those, but it's still very usable, this is a great choice. One of the cool things about this amp, and something that I can appreciate being that I love using external effects, it actually sounds pretty good with your pedal board running into the front end. So if you're someone who likes to use pedals, this amp's a great choice. I set mine up clean on either the Fender Deluxe Reverb preset or the Roland Jazz Chorus preset, which is a beautiful sounding clean, and then you can run your pedals into it. It was actually designed with that in mind, because I guess they knew not everyone wanted the complexity of a straight up digital modeling experience, so I can appreciate that. And again, while you can't completely configure the amplifier from the top panel, you do get a 3-band EQ. There's also a dedicated reverb control and a gain control on there. So if you get a sound that you like, you can make subtle adjustments to the amp or complete EQ adjustments, which is pretty wild. I also like the fact that if you turn it off, turn it back on, everything will be where it was stored. It doesn't sort of remember your settings, and you can look at that either as a pro or con, but for digital modeling amps, when you store presets, I kind of find that really handy. Like all the amplifiers on this list, this particular amplifier doesn't have what I would consider to be the most versatility from the amplifier itself. You really do need either the Bluetooth app or the desktop software to get the most out of this amplifier, which may or may not be a deal breaker for you particularly, but I just wanted to let you know it's not like as functional as even the Katana, just by using the controls on the top. So if you want to switch over to a different tone, remove the delay and all that kind of stuff, you're going to need the actual app. But you can store a whole bunch of presets, which makes it pretty usable once you know what kind of sounds you like. You've got, I think, 3 or 4 different banks that you can store a whole bunch of different presets and recall them just by pushing a button on the top. At the end of the day, if you're looking for something a little bit different from your Boss Katanas or your Fender Mustangs, and you want a current amplifier that's light, loud, and easy to use with external effects, this would be a great choice, but it definitely isn't as versatile just from using the panel as the other ones I've mentioned so far. And the good news is, though, that it's new, so it's easier to find than the old school Fender Mustang III version 2, for example. So if you're looking for something different, definitely give these ones a look. And here's my final review. What do you think? All right, over to maybe the most divisive digital modeling amplifier ever created. It's from Fender. If you haven't guessed already, it's the Fender Tone Master Series of amplifiers. And these are sort of amplifiers I have a love-hate relationship with as well. I love how easy they are to get around. I also love the tones. I don't love the price. I think they're way too expensive for a digital modeling amplifier, but it's got the Fender logo on there. So, you know, the mentality is they can kind of charge whatever they like for it and people pay for it. And there's nothing wrong with paying for it either. I don't think it's a bad move if you love the amplifier, but just compared with the rest of the amplifiers on this list, they're expensive. And I'll frame this. So one of the things I learned about the Fender Mustang III version 2, it sounded so good. It did the deluxe reverb every bit as good as the Tone Master amp. Sure, the Tone Master amp has the aesthetics. It's got the made in or assembled in the USA components on the cabinet and all that kind of stuff. But it's still a digital modeling amplifier. It doesn't have transformers. It doesn't have any valves. And it's basically now the price of a valve amp a few years ago. So I find them just a little bit too expensive to justify. But yeah, they do sound great and they're light. But the thing I really can appreciate about the Fender Mustang not the Mustangs, what I can appreciate about the Fender Tone Master amplifiers is the fact that they recreate the amp that you're buying's tone very well. They're still maybe not 100% of the way there in terms of the feel, but they sound amazing. You can record with them. There's like zero noise floor, which I love about them. Maybe my only other critique with the Tone Master series of amplifiers would be the fact that they sort of haven't brought anything new to the table. The Bassman was the first, I think, to incorporate something additional from the amp. I think it's got reverb, it's got an effects loop. None of the prior amps took the amp to the next level. It's like they were stuck making the same amp every single year. So for example, a Fender Deluxe Reverb, why couldn't they make it twice as loud as a starting point? Why not? Why does it have to be the same as the original? Why can't it have an effects loop? It's a digital modeling amplifier. That would make so much sense. And I think consumers who want effects loops would appreciate that. That's a deal breaker for a lot of people. And yeah, it's something I would love to see sort of integrated into future models. Now let's talk about longevity. This is one of those sort of unanswered questions when it comes to the Tone Master to some extent. Now, while they're great sounding amps, they look cool, they sound great, a few people have said that they last about 2 years with regular gigging. But I think the target audience for these amps isn't necessarily gigging musicians. I think it's more for the enthusiast or someone who might use it live every now and then, as opposed to someone who's going to gig with it all of the time. And it also brings up the concern of, how does this get repaired after the warranty? Can amp techs do it, or do you need to buy all the parts from Fender? And then that costs you a fortune plus the repair costs. So these are questions that I know are raised on YouTube and in forums and all that kind of stuff, but it's also one of the main reasons why I didn't invest in one long term, because I thought, just don't know if they're going to be as reliable, at least with some of the valve or tube amplifiers from Fender. While some of the tubes are dodgy and all that kind of stuff, at least it can be repaired easy. You can take it to any amp tech and they can get it sorted if they know what they're doing, of course. So yeah, it's just one of the concerns with the Tone Master amps. But I'll leave my rating on screen here next to this lovely highway side, what looks like a golf course here. That's a little pond. Hopefully there's no crocodiles. All right, now we're getting over to the final digital modeling amplifier on this list, and it's my favorite. So much so that I purchased one again in 2024. It was roughly in June when I ordered it, or May, I can't really remember, but this is a 14-year-old amplifier That's right, it's 14 years old. What? Why would you buy a 14-year-old digital modeling amplifier? Because this amplifier does something that none of the others do in multiple categories. So if you haven't guessed already, this is, of course, the Kemper Profiling amplifier. And that's right, it does multiple things that the rest of these amplifiers don't. And I'm going to talk about that. So let's talk about longevity first. 14 years they've been out, and Kemper are still supporting them with firmware updates. This is a lesson to every other digital modeling amplifier manufacturer out there who wants to make an amp, and if they want to take it seriously, they would have some sort of future proofing through firmware. And I love the fact that Kemper's hardware was as capable as it was back in the day. It was innovative, and for those who don't really know the beauty of the Kemper Profiler, let me talk about what I love about it. I can essentially mic up any of my amps or signal chain, so I can have an overdrive going into the clean channel of my Fender amplifier, and I can basically record or copy that sound. So I've got it at the touch of a dial basically, and it makes it easy for me to record. This is without question the best recording tool, bar none, out of any of these. So what's the trade-off? The trade-off is I think there's too much stuff in the Kemper. The purpose of it is, in my opinion and experience here, is to replicate your own tone, but they've put in a million different effects and a million different delays and overdrives and distortions and fuzz pedals and all that kind of stuff, which is fantastic if you don't already have your own sound sorted out. But it's just a bit overwhelming if you're new to this sort of gear. So yeah, you've got to deal with that. There's a huge learning curve with it. The software still feels a little bit too antiquated. It really needs an overhaul with a much more visual sort of editor. And there's little bugs in the software, like when you want to label a specific amplifier, you can't change some of the parameters. It gets a little bit finicky, but in terms of tone, just coming out of the studio monitors at home, or of course you can run this into a full range speaker or whatever, this is by far the best sounding one out of all of them. Unlike digital modeling amps, which are digital representations of amplifiers, this copies your sound. So your tone is unique to you, and you can't put a price on that, but you can. This is, of course, the most expensive amplifier out of all of them on the list. But if you're a serious recording musician, or if you're doing what I do on YouTube and you demo or review a lot of guitars, the Kemper is in a league of its own. I still prefer it over all of the other solutions like it, because I can run a mic into the back or from a mixer, and then I can record my sound. I don't want to have Eddie Van Halen sound or some crazy wet sort of clean channel that has chorus and all this kind of stuff on there. I don't want that. I just want my sound, and I want to be able to get it easy. And this makes the process the easiest out of all of them. I can get my sound and it's going to sound exactly the same, which I'm a huge fan of. And now some people will say, isn't there a feel difference? There is sort of when it comes to sustain, but if you know how to record and you mic stuff up and you get a good sound, then you're going to love the Kemper. If you don't know how to do that sort of stuff, you might not love it. And this is one of the trade-offs to that whole system. I guess the only other thing about it is, while I've grown to like the weird sort of green lunchbox thing, it definitely won't be for everybody. And if you want an amp that has a speaker, this also won't be the choice. And I'm talking about the unpowered head. That's the one that I've got. And I think longevity, this gets an A+. Tones, this gets an A+. Value, for me, it gets an A+. But I can understand that it's not the amp for everybody. Other people will have it as a D. Totally get it. It's all up to your use case. And if you're looking for, I think, still the best recording tool with basically every type of effect under the sun in there, but with a pretty lackluster software package, and this has outlived everything on the list basically, the Kemper Profiler is the way to go. And here's my final review as I show you this lovely little kids playground. I'll tell you what, I've always wanted to go up this hill. Look at it. Let's do it. Yeah, there we go. And that's the view down the slide. All right, let's do the slide. Kidding me? How do I get in? I'm too big and I'm a short ass. You actually need to be a kid to get in here. But yeah, let's try it. Let's see if we can do this. Sure, I got everything out of my pockets. We're going in from the front. Alrighty, here we go. Woo! Oh, that was awesome. All right, let's talk about a few honorable mentions, because there's definitely a few amps I could have put on this list, including the Marshall MG30FX. That amplifier is so good, but it's not as big as the rest of the ones on this list, nor is it what I would consider like a professional digital modeling amplifier. And while digital modeling amps are inherently aimed at enthusiasts or people practicing and all that kind of stuff, everything I put on this list, with the exception of the Kemper, which doesn't have its actual speaker, but you can buy one, you can take out and play live. So I didn't want to add the Marshall MG30FX because it's such a great amplifier for like a home studio practice setup. And if that's what you're looking for, I'll link to my best practice amplifiers video up over here, wherever it is, and you can check out that after this video. But yeah, that's a great amplifier, no questions about it. Fender also make the Champion XL50, which is the one with the black kind of aesthetics. Some of the amp models on the Fender XL50 sound a little bit thin and others sound great, but I love its simplicity. But again, I don't think it's as good as the other ones that I've mentioned, especially the original Fender Mustang III V2. That amp absolutely wipes the floor with almost everything on here. So yeah, that amp was way too good for its time, and Fender remedied that. Now, there's definitely a few amplifiers I haven't tested, like the Line 6 Spider, the Catalyst amplifier, and a few of the more affordable amps from the likes of Vox and a few other companies. So I haven't tested everything, I don't claim to, but this is the best of the best that I've tested over the last like 16 years or whatever it is of making videos on YouTube. So if you enjoyed the video, please leave a thumbs up. We can get it to 1,000 thumbs up. That would be amazing. It feels like a lot of people watch and comment, but no one clicks the thumbs up. It really does help. So if you like what I do and you want to see more of it next year, support the show, leave a thumbs up. Thank you. Catch you soon.